Good morning, baby boomers. I'm John Frantz, author of the For Lover Boomers book and these YouTube podcasts. And today we're featuring a very special boomer guest, John Lauber. Good morning, John.
Morning, John. How are you?
Great. Really happy to have you here today. Um, John, let me introduce John a little bit here. He's a valued friend. We've known each other since the early 1990s. Um, John is the founder of Lauber Business Partners and the owner of that firm for 30 years. They are a respected leader in delivering fractional CFO services, providing exceptional accountants that also bring the strategic financial insight that provides forward-looking visibility and drives bottom-line profitability. Over the years, I've used John for financial planning help, and he has used my firm, the France Group, for marketing and sales programs. Um, and perhaps the most important thing I can say about John is he personifies the term trusted advisor. In fact, if you look up trusted advisor in any dictionary, it says see John Lauber. he's he's always both realistic and optimistic at the same time, which is just what a business owner needs. Many of his customers have been my customers for many years, and I know that they trust him with his help and them making decisions that keep him in business, which is their lifeblood, if you will. So in addition to all of that, on the professional side, John is a father and a grandfather and a great friend to many. So welcome, John. And I wonder if you wouldn't start by sharing with our viewers what's going on with these pictures. John, would you like to talk to these pictures?
Sure. First, John, you're much too kind in your introduction, but I'll accept it. Um, in the pictures, first thing, it looks like that's from my LinkedIn profile. Um, and you had mentioned that I started a business. I actually sold that business 9 years ago. I can't believe how the time has flown by. But now my role is primarily that volunteer board member and proud grandpa, which is something that I really enjoy. Um, I have in the other two pictures Kennedy's Disease Association, which is my primary volunteer effort, and the bottom right photo shows me with a walker. 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with a degenerative muscle condition known as Kennedy's disease or spinal bulbar muscular atrophy. It's a genetic disease. My grandfather had it. He passed the mutated gene on to my mother, and she was kind enough to pass it on to me. Um, it's a disease that affects everyone quite differently, and but it affects the muscles all over the body. For me, it's primarily affecting my legs, a little bit in my speech, and certainly overall general weakness in my body. 2.5 years ago, I was invited to join the board as treasurer of the National Kennedy's Disease Association. And, I have enjoyed that role. It's allowed me to utilize my accounting skills, but also it's given me a platform to raise money to help fund research as we search for a cure. There is no known cure or treatment currently for the disease. And so, because it is genetic, and the reason that I show my 5 grandchildren in the picture is if you think back to the XY chromosome thing from high school biology class, I may be passing it on to, I certainly have passed it on to my daughter, the mutated gene, and she may be passing it on to 3 of our grandchildren. So that's what gives me a kind of a passion for doing what I can as the Kennedy Disease Association looks for a cure or treatment.
Wonderful. I know that you did a program recently where you were able to drive $35,000 in contributions. You want to share that?
Yeah, I was thinking about how could I come up with a campaign that would kind of give people an insight into what I'm experiencing, and it came dawned on me that if I asked people to think about what it would be like if they couldn't take 100 steps walking without assistance, without the assistance of a cane or a walker or a wheelchair. And so I kind of wrapped that idea around a campaign that I called the 100 Step Challenge, where I asked people to think about that. And not only think just about that, but also try to envision what it would be like to know there is no cure and to know that I may be passing it on to future generations. And I think that hit a chord with my friends and family and broader business network. And they have been so kind in supporting me by donating. And actually, John, the first year that campaign raised $35,000. This past fall, the second campaign raised $50,000. So I am just so overwhelmed by the outpouring of support that we've received.
You just have this fabulous can-do attitude. I mean, it's not about what you can't do; it's about what you can do. And I see that in you over and over again. You shared something kind of precious with me the last time we talked. When I asked you where does your can-do attitude come from, and you kind of suggested your mom had been a very positive person. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, my dad passed away of a heart attack when he was 42 years old. At that point, I was 7 years old. I had two sisters, one older, one younger, and my mom just kind of carried on. My mom and dad had a vision of running a small retail store selling Catholic prayer books and rosaries and so forth. And they had a plan, but she implemented that plan. Went forward with remodeling a couple of rooms in our home for this store. And I just saw her every day get up and carry on. And always she was supportive of everything I did, whether it was, Little League baseball or my, career choices. So for sure she was a big influence in my life.
The older I get, the more I realize, the impact my parents had on me, in terms of, how to go forward and how to deal with adversity and go on. You've shared with me a couple of things about how you continue to contribute within your own family. Can you share a little bit about that? And how you're caring for your wife currently with her knee surgery?
Oh gosh, in a interesting turn of events. So a week and a half ago, my wife Debbie had knee replacement surgery, and suddenly our roles have switched. She has always been my caregiver, giving me help when I needed it, and suddenly now I am the caregiver in helping her. And I have to tell you, John, if my legs were tired before, and now I'm on the edge of fatigue because I guess it gives me new insight in how much Debbie did, because when I'm trying to do both jobs around the house, And her recovery is going marvelously. She's doing far better than I had expected. She got home from the hospital. The first thing she did was took over my lift chair, and and yesterday she asked if she could borrow my rollator so she could go out into her garden and start trimming back the hydrangeas. So um, if somebody has a can-do attitude, she certainly does.
You shared a little story about your son was remodeling and you were helping him paint the moldings.
you know, so you get to a point, right? I can't get on a ladder to help paint, um, and but if you want to be a hero, if you've got muscular problems like I have, if you want to be a hero, offer to edge the entire house along the baseboards. No one likes to do that, to get down on their hands and knees and or get bent over and edge. But for me, that's a natural position, being down on my hands and knees. So I edge the whole all around the baseboards and halfway up the door moldings and so forth, from sitting on the floor. So um, it kind of do what you can, and I've always felt as my disease has slowly progressed that figure out how to do what you used to do, just doing it differently, or find a way to contribute no matter what the situation is, and because that brings me satisfaction, and makes me feel worthwhile, even though I'm dealing with something. So, and that's kind of how I look at it, John.
Right. I love how you say, you look for a solution. You mentioned that you have found a thing called RMS button hook to help you, button up your shirt collar. And it's a cute story. Would you mind
Yeah.
sharing that?
Well, sure. One of the things, my fine motor skills, um, have slowly left me. I think sometimes everything goes around and comes around. I feel like the 2-year-old who has to use the big fat crayons, to color because they don't have those fine motor skills. Well, that affected me. So buttoning buttons became a real challenge. So you just go on Amazon and you know, support for buttoning buttons or whatever I put in, and bingo, there's a little tool that you can insert through the buttonhole, snag the button, and pull it back through. It's just such a simple thing, but very effective. And I think no matter what the challenge is, if you look for a solution, it'll be out there. Um, like when Debbie was in the hospital, and the occupational therapist was giving us some tips for going home. She showed us that to put on the compression stockings that Debbie needs to wear during the day, that you put a plastic bag on over the foot, and then you can slide that compression sock up over the plastic bag, and the socks have a hole in the toe, so you're then able to put the sock back up over the foot and pull the bag out and then pull the sock down. So there's a solution out there for most challenges, and that allow you to continue to do the things that you always did and enjoy.
Yep. You just have to be willing to look for it. I think that's really the message. Maybe another quick topic. One of the responses I've gotten to my book and to the podcast has been that boomers feel like they need to stick together, to form a community, a way of feeling, that they are connected to this larger group called the baby boomers. I was just curious if you have any suggestions on how can baby boomers stick together.
I think that just being there and being active, I know that people have kind of told me that I'm an inspiration to them because I keep doing things. And, you know, to be kind to people is a simple way. You know, I use now my walker more than my cane. But when I am using my cane, if I see another person walking with a cane, I'll oftentimes raise my cane and say, "You want a duel?" And every time I've done that, I've gotten a smile, and the smile is saying, "Hey, this guy knows my situation," and I think that is just a simple thing to make people feel comfortable and that they're not alone. I think that's the important thing. We're not alone for sure.
Uh, I'm going to now show the slide again, and you can talk to a little bit about how a viewer that might want to help with Kennedy's disease, how they could do that.
Oh, sure. So we're always, every year the KDA funds research grants and provides fellowships to postgraduate, postdoctoral fellows to research, looking for research or a cure. And so we're always interested in donations. Certainly by going to the kennedysdisease.org webpage. There's easy buttons to donate, or by mailing donations to our address in Atlanta would be a good way to donate. And we're just so grateful to the people that do donate, because that's really what we and the KDA are all in together, is working to support people with the disease, to support the caregivers, and to support the carriers. So the women who receive the mutated gene from their fathers and who know they may be passing it on. So it's the support and also the research that we look for. So donations are always gratefully appreciated.
Oh, terrific. I really appreciate you joining us today. You are the master adapter, in my opinion.
Well, John, you can only do what you can do, right? And so to adapt, to find a better way, a new way to do it within my limitations, that's what keeps me going. And I enjoy that. I take that as a challenge to find a way.
That's the way to do it. I mean, that's really leadership that you've always shared with people, and this is your leadership on can do, and I love it, and I really appreciate it. Well, let me wind this up. As always, as I address boomers that are listening, we always wind this up by saying, let's all adapt to our world as it changes, and boldly go on, and also take care of ourselves, and remember that it's your heart that takes you places. So with that, we'll call it an end of the day, and thanks again, John, and bye-bye for now.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.